in the security dialogue, we can start with what is the role of Quad that you see in terms of the threat that we have seen from Global Times to Australia, and also to the to the country, citing that LSE alert nest will be a heavy cost for India. That is the kind of warning they are issuing to India.
Look, let me be very candid and upfront. As far as India is concerned, because my responses will be India centric. So, as far as India is concerned, ever since independence, we have not faced such a grim national security scenario, right? And we have the external threat from the alliance of China and Pakistan, with China being the main threat and Pakistan its proxy and subsidiary, which has been waging asymmetric war against India for the last 30 years, unchecked, unstopped, right? And China intervened recently when it found that after the Balakot strike, airstrike, Pakistan was shaken up because they were facing the prospect of an all out war with India. So they backed down and they were very quiet for some time, for 22 months to be precise, after Balakot operation. When we removed Article 370, when we removed 35A, etc., they just made verbal noises. They did nothing because they were scared. It was for this reason that China mounted the aggression in Ladakh in the last year and tried to put pressure on our borders to reassure Pakistan that don't worry, keep the asymmetric war against India, intensify it. We are here to see that India does not react. Very strangely, that is the time the United States also put pressure on us at the start of this year to not do anything to Pakistan, because Pakistan was engaged in helping the Americans get a clean break from Afghanistan. You see, and therefore, in February this year, you saw us having a ceasefire with Pakistan, and that was virtually facilitated Pakistan's takeover of Afghanistan. We should have put pressure. We should have seen that they were not able to divert troops to attack Panjshir, but we allowed them a free hand, and now they have won in Afghanistan. How far this victory goes, whether it will be a Pyrrhic victory or otherwise, remains to be seen. But the fact of the matter is that they then have turned their attention onto us. So now we are facing the combination of China, Pakistan. In Afghanistan, we have a very hostile Taliban, which is threatening to intervene in Jammu and Kashmir. We have a Turkey, Erdogan, who thinks he is the next Sultan of the global Emirate. He is the next Khalifa, as they call it. And he is keeping ready 3,000 Syrian fighters to intervene in Jammu and Kashmir. He wants to take over the Bagram air base in Afghanistan if he can help it, so that he can intervene in any fight between India and Pakistan. This is the most dire scenario. This is the external envelope of the threat. And as we look within, we have the Maoists and we have the jihadis. Now, coming back to China and your question of Quad, the Quad is a very logical alliance. If you have to deal with a hostile, increasingly aggressive China, which is rapidly converting its which is rapidly converting its usable military power, its economic power, into employable, usable military power, right? Then we have to have a combination of the major Asian powers, which is India, Japan, Vietnam to an extent, and possibly we will have to collude with Taiwan. At the international, that is at the regional level. At the international scale, we already have this coalition of democracies, the so called Quad, with the United States, with India, with Japan, and Australia. These are the coalition of democracies now lined up to contain, to try and restrain China's overtly aggressive behavior, its contempt of the rule of law, its aggression on the high seas, and the way it is bullying its smaller local neighbors like Vietnam, like Malaysia, Indonesia, and a whole lot of these small countries. They've been bullying them, absolutely, very unabashedly carrying out bullying. So this has to stop. The problem with the Quad is that we've seen a lot of rhetoric, but we haven't seen
Action.
the muscle to back it. It's talking more in terms of generalities like countering COVID, countering climate change, etc., 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 and not really getting into a kind of a quasi-military alliance. Yes, what is happening on the ground and which is very encouraging is the constant exercises between the quad navies. They have been exercising together jointly to enhance interoperability, to get to know one another's capability, to synergize our capabilities so that when needed, we can do it. The Malabar series of exercises, firstly, we were a little timorous about Japan joining, then Japan joined in, and now Australia has joined. And to that extent, even the United Kingdom have sent its new aircraft carrier Queen Elizabeth there and a carrier battle group. The French have sent a carrier battle group to challenge China's claims to legitimacy over the whole of South China Sea, to counter China's very aggressive stance against Taiwan, to counter China's very aggressive forays into the East China Sea. China is behaving like a regional bully. And the only way that can be tamed is if we take aggressive countermeasures, which definitely the Americans are taking in terms of sending a number of carrier battle groups opposite Taiwan into the South China Sea, into East China Sea, etc. And the Quad countries have also been sending their ships, including India, to see that the rule of law prevails and the freedom of navigation is preserved. You see, but what we have been slightly discomfited over is that the military aspect of the Quad with the Biden presidency is increasingly being played down, and it is being made more into a talk shop. And now they have gone in for AUKUS. Australia, United States, United Kingdom, and United States. They have
True.
formed an absolute military alliance, and they are now going to give nuclear submarine technology to Australia to construct 8 nuclear-powered submarines, which will quite obviously make a huge difference. And if ever the Western powers have to blockade China, that is the time these nuclear submarines would play a very
Big role.
significant role, right? But when it comes to India, when we are willing to pay, we are paying in hard cash for all the weapons that we buy, whether from Russia, whether from United States, whether from France, from elsewhere, wherever. We pay hard cash because we've got the financial heft. But even for hard cash, somehow the Americans are unwilling to transfer to us cutting edge technology like F-35 stealth aircraft, like nuclear submarines, which have been given to Australia. F-35s have been given to Japan. But with India, they are somehow not able to uh, part, or to even for hard cash, not part with cutting edge military technology. And for some reason, we find they are trying to keep an equivalence between us and Pakistan. That is quite disconcerting. I think they'll have to make up their mind if they really want to counter China. Now, we've just heard lots of talk on American television that Joe Biden is making an outreach to Xi Jinping, and Joe Biden's son, we know, has got business interests in China. And despite all the rhetoric, if Joe Biden is going to go soft on China, then it will leave a lot of countries in the lurch.
True.
You see, you first try to egg on India, Japan, Australia, etc. Go take on China, and then you go and cut deals with China. And the simple fact is, I'm very sorry, but the United States hasn't covered itself with glory in the withdrawal from Afghanistan. The disastrous way it was conducted was actually a PR disaster of the highest order. And now the world is actually asking, is the United States a superpower in decline, palpable decline? Because you are showing lack of will. And you can't really fault people for questioning. Look, if the Americans could stand up to a ragtag outfit like the Taliban, and they have shamefully, practically run in a very disheveled, disorganized manner from Afghanistan, how do you expect the rest of the world to believe that you will take on China and Russia together? Together. You see, the simple fact is that Henry Kissinger was one of the most clear-headed strategists, geostrategical thinking he displayed of a very high order. And Henry Kissinger had said, it should be settled maxim of United States foreign policy never to take on more than one major Asian power at a time. They consider Russia also an Asian power and China as an Asian power. You should never take them on together. So when they were taking on the Soviet Union and then Russia, they aligned with China. It is Henry Kissinger who was the architect of that outreach to China, and in Richard Nixon's time, and that historic kind of his visit to China, which went through Pakistan, that arch villain.
So
there in that area.
so the rank one wants to keep rank 2, 3, 4, fighting with each other, and
Yeah.
that is how they select the Asian powers to favor and be against.
That's right.